Hi everyone, welcome to my newest video. Today is going to be a really relaxed chit-chat style one where I just talk a little bit about the pros and cons of living in Seattle. Now for a backstory, I'm originally from Vancouver, Washington, so basically 20 minutes from Portland, Oregon. So I'm from Washington, but I actually moved up to Seattle about 1.5, almost 2 years ago. So my experience is relatively new, but I am from the region and I spent a lot of time here growing up with family and friends in the area, so I do have a pretty in-depth understanding of how the city works just from coming here all the time as a kid. So let's jump right into the video. Okay, so the first topic of discussion is the outdoor scenery and just access in Seattle. I think that this is probably one of the biggest pros of the city because you're so close to some of the most beautiful regions in the US, in my opinion. Some of them, of course. The first being the Puget Sound. And Puget Sound runs for hours north and south of Seattle, so you're really just in the heart of it. And it's essentially where the ocean meets this region. And so it's saltwater, which is awesome because there's fishing and crabbing and there's so much to just do and see along the water. You know, you've got water sports, you can do kayaking, boating, swimming in the summer times. There's just a lot to see and do along the Puget Sound, and it's gorgeous. So you've got lots of little islands connecting to it and peninsulas, and there's so much to do on them, so you have that as a fun activity. So I would say that's a huge pro and something that I really enjoy about this region. And going hand in hand with Puget Sound, you also have mountains. So you've got Mount Baker not far from here, you have the summit at Snoqualmie, Stevens Pass, and so many more places to ski. I've been to Stevens Pass and Mount Baker, I haven't been to Crystal yet, but I will say both of those are really fun. Baker has awesome powder, and Stevens Pass is just really close. But if you like skiing or snowboarding, those are all great options. Another pro in terms of kind of that outdoor environment is Seattle's parks. There are so many places to go in terms of walking trails and outdoor recreation areas just within the city limits. A few of my favorites are Lincoln Park, Seward Park, Discovery Park, and then the Washington Park Arboretum. They're all massive, lovely, gorgeous places to just get outside and take a breath of fresh air. And lastly, there is tons and tons of hiking trails and beautiful national parks to check out and see. There are so many that I couldn't name them all, but as you know, it's just one of those great places to be for hiking and rock climbing. Whatever your outdoor adventures are, they're all here. And paired with all of that, Seattle is also a very eco-friendly place. I think Seattle has done a lot in terms of trying to create a more sustainable place and city. And as someone working in real estate, you really see that when encountering new construction. There's tons of codes and rules, new design tactics to be better for the environment and in return help lower your cost of living for utilities and what have you, and electricity, etc. So they're pretty advanced in that way, and I think that's a nice aspect about the city too. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the social scene. The social scene is interesting, and I think my opinion is shared amongst others, but comment down below what you think, because I do want to acknowledge that every experience is different and often can be based upon your personal preferences and goals in terms of friendships and whatever. But here's what I'll say. When people talk about the Seattle freeze, the way that I look at it is more seasonal. I think people are much less likely to commit to plans kind of in the winter time. So you might have, a group of people you all plan to get together, and then people start kind of flaking last minute and not wanting to go, which I'll honestly be the first to say I do that sometimes. So I think that is kind of part of the freeze, and then as spring and summer come around, people are much more open to doing things. And I guess I will also say it sometimes feels like Seattle is a little bit less social than other places I've been to, so I'm just going to compare it to Texas. One of my best friends lives down there and I visit her often, and here's what I'll say. I'll go there and everyone goes out to the same bars and kind of gets together, and there's just a central hub. And there isn't really that here in Seattle. So you might go out with a group of friends, but it'll probably just be that group. It won't be, a bunch of other people joining in as much as I think you might see down there. So I think there's a lot less interconnectivity, I guess, of friend groups. I don't know. That's just what I've noticed, but that also might just be my own personal experience. I think it's just a little bit more relaxed than some places, and there's definitely not as much nightlife as you may find in other cities. But on that same train of thought, what Seattle really does excel at is their kind of community activities and organizations to join. They have plenty of, walking groups, community service groups, lots of, I guess, clubs to get involved with. So if you have any kind of interest, hobby, or passion that you want to start getting more involved with and meeting people through, you will definitely find it here. There's no shortage of that. There's a lot to do in Seattle during the day. So in that respect, I think Seattle does really well. And I think part of this is also why nightlife might not be as popular. Okay, so cost of living is definitely a con here. It's expensive. There's really no way around it. The median sold home price from this past month was recorded at right around $1 million. So, and that's just median. So it is, it's harder to find affordable real estate here. And as a Seattle broker, I certainly see that myself. I think the other problem too is that a lot of people are looking for single family homes with yards and more space, but there's a lot of development for townhomes and there's lots of inventory for condos, which are just not as desirable. Not to say that people aren't still purchasing them, but I think there is this want and push for, single family home ownership. And the interesting thing too about Seattle is, most cities, as you move further and further out, things tend to get a little bit less expensive, but with us, we have Bellevue right on the east side, which also has a very high, even higher median average sold home price. So your suburbs are just as expensive as your city, if not even more expensive in certain locations. So it's tough in that regard, but you do find more affordable home prices as you move much further north and south of the city. I do think, though, that if we're looking at home prices being high, we also have to look at the fact that there's a ton of opportunity here in Seattle. When thinking of big companies, there's no shortage of them here. You've got, Amazon and Google and Microsoft. There's T-Mobile and Boeing. Honestly, the list could go on and on and on, but that's just to say that there's tons of opportunity here, and one of the reasons why prices are being, driven up so high. I also do think that it's a beautiful place to live and a lot of people want to be here. So that's another reason why it's pretty expensive. But regardless of why, the reality is, yes, there's a heavy price tag that comes with living here, which could be seen as a bit of a con. All right, another topic is pets. Pets are very, very popular here in Seattle, and it's an extremely pet-friendly city. You'll find dogs at breweries and pubs. There's often outdoor patios that actually allow kids and pets, which is kind of interesting, but they're all over the place and I think that's kind of fun. Also, many of the apartments here offer turf patios for pets, so just another example of how friendly this city can be. And there's tons of dog parks around as well, so it's just a good place to be if you like animals and pets. Another thing is local businesses. There are tons of local businesses here in Seattle, so if you like chain food and kind of chain restaurants or clothing stores, of course you'll find those at malls, but you won't see them a ton around the city. You have a lot more small local businesses, boutique shops, and overall, even in just our industries, we do see a lot of small businesses, and I think that's pretty cool. It is awesome to see them thriving around the city. As you drive around neighborhoods, it's cool to stop at all of the little main streets that live around them to go check out some of these small businesses. And that's an activity I actually really enjoy doing. Okay, so we've got mixed reviews on the weather. The weather, I think, is amazing because it's all 4 seasons. You have a warm, beautiful summer that is actually pretty long. It typically lasts from, I would say, June through October. October is pretty sunny and warm here most of the time. Winter is mild. you don't have a ton of snow. It's not really, really cold, but you still have access to the snow. So in that regard, it's just sort of mild. Spring is hit or miss. I think spring is very bipolar. You have beautiful sunny days, and then by afternoon or the next day, it could be torrential downpouring rain. You know, it's just very up and down. And of course, fall is gorgeous, but fall is short here. Fall is really October and November, and then it kind of turns straight into winter, but fall is gorgeous and I love it. So overall, it's great because you do have all 4 seasons, and they're all generally pretty mild, but the con, I will say, is that it can be gray and gloomy often throughout the year. It doesn't really matter the season. You have gloomy days in the summer, you have gloomy days in the fall, winter, and spring. It's just gray. And not always, but just often enough that I think you can feel it a little bit. So if you're not a fan of that, you might not love the weather here. But I don't think it's as bad as people say. I'm from Portland area, and I would say Portland is rainier and more gray than here. I don't know. Maybe that's not true for some people. That's been my experience so far since moving here. But comment below what you think. I don't know. Okay, so our last topic is public transportation. I think that it could improve here in Seattle. There's the light rail, which is pretty great, and it runs mostly north to south, which is quite convenient. From Linwood all the way to kind of the SeaTac airport, you have pretty easy access. But it still could use some improvement running east and west, and overall, aside from the link, the bus, I understand that the buses are decent, but I don't have a ton of awesome feedback on them. Now I will say I don't really utilize the public transportation, I just drive. So I'm not the best person to speak on it, this is just kind of what I've heard. And driving in itself is a little bit chaotic as well because the traffic here is pretty bad. And what I will say is I'm self-employed, so I try to schedule my day to not hit the traffic, so I don't experience it a ton. However, there are days where a 20-minute commute could be a 45-minute commute. It really just depends on the day, and there's lots of construction happening in Seattle, and there's just a lot of cars. So overall, I think traffic is not the best, and public transportation could be improved. I know it's being improved as we speak. Okay, so thank you guys so much for watching my video. I just wanted to kind of spitball a few thoughts I was having about what I think of Seattle, my opinion of being here for the past couple years. And if you want any other videos like this, comment down below or even comment some questions that you have or thoughts that you have on the city. I'd love to hear them, and I think I'll be making another video like this because I find them really interesting to watch. And as always, I am a local real estate broker in the region if you may need those kinds of services. My information is linked down below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Bye.